Going back to the 90s, the albums which I listened to and loved. Right, so growing up in the 90s, I would have been a kid listening to this music, but that doesn't mean to say I wasn't old enough to appreciate it. I did. In fact, I loved the 90s growing up as a kid and exploring sort of older music at the time as well, sort of like the 60s stuff. As you tend to listen to what your parents listen to, don't you? And as well as what's going on in the modern era. So yeah, going into sort of, I don't know, maybe 1994, I would have been 9, going 10. Oasis debut came out, and my brother brought that, and it was absolutely outstanding. The rawness of Liam's vocals in those songs, it's just belting those absolute belters of songs out. It was a fantastic album. Um, great album, and of course I have it. What's not been said about this album? I prefer it over What's the Story, Morning Glory, but only just. Great album, loved it. And moving on to What's the Story, Morning Glory. This is also a masterpiece in my opinion as well. Although some of the songs have Noel's vocals on them, which I like. I do like Noel's songs and his vocals. His voice is a bit more softer than Liam's. He doesn't have that kind of growl to what Liam has. But there's great songs on here, and I absolutely understand why people prefer this one over the debut. I get it. There's some belters of songs, as Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger. Some might say Cast No Shadow, She's Electric, Morning Glory, Champagne Supernova. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. The quality, but I just prefer the first. It's just a preference. I think it's a little bit more rockier, a little bit more punk. This is kind of like the 90s Beatles. Oasis were like the Beatles of the 90s, which they inherit that kind of punk element, and and of course being Manchester as well. Over just over from Liverpool. This is like the Manchester's take of the Beatles. A very Beatles inspired band, as everybody knows. But the music is fantastic, and I do think they borrowed stuff from T Rex and others on this album, but it shouldn't really be taken away from them. Really, everyone seems to borrow things. Music evolves, so just let it go. They made it their own. These songs, Noel's songwriting is fantastic, and it was for much of the 90s. Liam's vocals he was probably the best frontman in the world for quite some time. It was a great band. It was a great era, and it was an absolute joy to have these growing up in the 90s. And I'm like many people who appreciate um, Oasis in the 90s. Sure they would have loved it too. So yeah, great, two fantastic albums. But these two albums I kind of explored for myself. My brother had a lot of albums on CD, and stuff which I liked. So I kind of had to branch away from what my brother had and start my own collection. And I always quite liked Space, and I come across their Spiders album. I think I was at a book fair with my dad, and there was this seller selling CDs. Oddly enough, it was a book fair. I don't know why there were CDs for sale, but anyway, there was. And I just don't think they wanted these albums. They were like giving them away for like something like 10p. And and being a kid at the time, not having much money, I thought, wow, it's an absolute bargain. I'll quite happily pay 10p for a Space album. I'm quite happy explore this. I mean, I knew the songs "Neighborhood" and "Female of the Species," which are on this album, and I thought, yeah, why not? So I think this was probably my first album on CD. So yeah, and the deep cuts I really enjoyed. They are a very quirky band, and I liked it. I appreciated it as a kid. It was different. Even for being at a young age. Mr. Psycho, that's a deep cut on here, and I always found that quite amusing, and I love it. Money, Me and You versus the World. Love Child of the Queen is okay. It's not a bad song. No One Understands. Voodoo Roller. It's it's very easy to listen to. It's an easy listening to album. Although it isn't. It's indie, but you know what I mean. It's easy on the ear. Drop Dead. Dark Clouds. Dark Clouds is a little bit more kind of talks about sort of like mental illness, and some of these songs are also about relationships and romances and things, but this one is a little bit more kind of what's the word? I would say psychedelic, but or maybe some psychedelic elements in the album, but it's kind of like it's a little bit of a sort of a fantasist of being like this kind of psycho in a lot of these songs, and even on the second album, he's sort of pretending to be this kind of creep. You know, it's all a sort of facade, but I kind of like it. It's different. Mr. Psycho, of course, being one of those songs. Um, Drop Dead, Kill Me. Uh, no One Understands. It's all very. It's kind of like he is being a sort of an outsider trying to fit in a world which he doesn't fit into. But some of the songs are decent. They're more sort of normal, so to speak. Neighborhood. Yeah, it's an interesting. It's a different kind of song. It's not the sort of song you would normally hear someone talking about a neighborhood and the goings on in it. It's clever. It's clever. It's clever writing. It's not something you would normally hear, and I like it. I like its quirkiness, and yeah, we picked up Spiders anyway, and which I believe was the debut, and also um, Tin Planet, which was probably the more commercially successful album. Begin Again was obviously one of their singles. Avenging Angels, the Ballad of Tom Jones, which features Catatonia. I've always liked that, and some really decent deep cuts. 1 o'clock, I love that even today. Be There, sort of like it's almost is sort of following the kind of stalky kind of persona, of being there, falling in love with someone, or just sort of keep fantasizing over it over and over and over again. It's very sort of romanticized. This Man, the Little Bitty Help from Elvis, which is a bit of a throwaway song. The unluckiest man in the world. Um, it doesn't take itself seriously. I don't think this band ever really did take themselves seriously. They just wrote stuff and had fun with it. Piggies, I like Piggies. Bad Days, that's a good track. There's No You. Now this is probably There's No You is probably the more serious of all the songs. It's about a relationship which has broken down and failed, and she's walked out of his life, and he's brought this painting when they were together. He brought this painting for her, and it ended up left in his apartment, and he's that's what he's talking about it. You know, this painting, and it's it's a nice song. I do like it. You know, there's a lot to be said about these albums. They're very underestimated. Disco Dolly is sort of a fun kind of trancey sort of number. Fran in Japan. I mean, they're okay, but overall, good albums, both of them. Very good albums. Um, yeah, fond memories of listening to these back in the 90's. And so, yeah, my probably my second album I picked up as I was venturing out away from what my brother had. I picked up Cast All Change, and this is a solid album as well. I've always liked Cast, and I knew this was something my brother didn't actually own, so it was good to get sort of something I had and he hasn't, sort of thing, you know. But yeah, All Right, Promised Land, Sandstorm, Mankind, Tell It Like It Is, um, just decent songs. Four Walls, I really like that song. Fine Time, Back of My Mind, Walk Away, which I think was a great song. I can remember, you know, they played that song after we lost Euro '96, and it was so fitting. You know, it was advertised that way just after we lost that Euros '96, and they played Walk Away. I think that was the perfect song for the moment. You know, um, who else we got on here? Reflections, History, and Two of a Kind. Um, Great stuff. Yeah, Fine Time, All Right, Sandstorm, and Walk Away. Four hits off this album, and their fellow album, Mother Nature Calls, might even be slightly better. Might just edge it. Not 100%. There's a song on here which I think is absolutely brilliant. Live the Dream. I think it's an absolute cracking song. Probably one of my favourite songs, if not my favourite of theirs. Live the Dream, which is on track 3. Free Me, On the Run, Live the Dream, Soul Tired, She Sunshines, I'm So Lonely is a nice song, sort of that kind of sadness like Walk Away does. The Mad Hatter, Mirror Me, Guidance Star, which is a nice uplifting tune. Never Gonna Tell You What to Do, um, Dance of the Stars. All songs written by John Power. Vocals and guitars, John Power. Liam Tyson guitar, Peter Wilkinson bass, Keith O'Neill on drums. Yeah, this came out in '97, and can't really make my mind up which one is better. It's so close. They are as good as each other, I think. Um, Very hard to say which one is better. I think people would go for this one. I think this is considered their better on out of all what they've done. But I don't know. This is maybe slightly better. Maybe. So yeah, going towards more the later part of the '90's, there was an absolute outstanding album with some outstanding number one songs on, and that was This Is My Truth, Tell Me Yours, The Manic Street Preachers. This is an incredible album. Still holds up well today. It's just an album you can listen to and you just think, wow, this is just, it's mind blowing how deep and powerful these songs are. They're everlasting. If you tolerate this, your children will be next, which is a huge number one. You Stole the Sun from My Heart, I think was a hit of theirs. And some of these deep cuts are outstanding. Ready for Drowning, Tsunami. I particularly like that one. Tsunami, My Little Empire, that one as well. I really like. I'm Not Working, You're Tender and You're Tired, Born a Girl, which is an interesting song. Be Natural, Black Dog on My Shoulder, a slightly sort of more optimistic number. Nobody Loved You, and SYMM. But yeah, an absolutely outstanding album. Probably one of the best albums of the 90s for me. This Stereophonics Performance on Cocktails, I love this. I love the B-sides. This is another great album. Roll Up and Shine, The Bartender and the Thief, Hurry Up and Wait, great songs. Great songs. Pick the Part That's New, great single. Just Looking, great single. Half the Lies You Tell Ain't True. I Wouldn't Believe Your Radio, another great single. I love listening to that. Even now, I cannot get bored of this album. T-shirt, Suntan. Is Yesterday Tomorrow Today, great song. A Minute Longer, I love that a song. A Minute Longer, um, it is great, absolutely great. She Takes Her Clothes Off, great song. Plastic California, I Stopped to Fill My Car Up. It's a great album, and it's a go-to even now, even a good 25 plus years later. Excellent, excellent album. Came out 99. So yeah, a little bit before 99, around about 97, Travis released The Man Who. Now this is a lovely, lovely album. It kind of has that kind of fear and struggle and that kind of anxiety captured in music by not just Travis but also other bands such as Coldplay, that debut album of Coldplay, and Keane's Hopes and Fears, talking about sort of relationships and struggles, and it's always an interesting sort of topic, and this goes into it really well. It kind of sells that kind of wintry, seasonal vibe, even on the back. That kind of beauty which that has in that kind of season, as well as the struggles going on in relationships and sort of life, also romanticizes as well a lot of those relationships. Writing to Reach You, uh, Love, She's So Strange, those songs particularly. The Fear, I mean, I love this. This album is good from start to finish. As You Are, Driftwood. What a song Driftwood is. It is brilliant. The Last Laugh of the Laughter. Track 6 was Turn, which was a hit. Why Does It Always Rain on Me, which is another hit of theirs. Just great song. Track 8 is Love. 9, She's So Strange. 10, Slideshow. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It starts brilliantly and it ends very, very well. It is a story. This album is a story from the start to the beginning, and it is a masterpiece in my opinion from Travis, and excellent album, and it's a go-to. I like to pick out and listen to every now and then, even now, even all these years later. So yeah, great album. One of the best albums of the 90s, which many of these albums are actually, in my opinion. The Verve released their Urban Hymns album in the late 90s, and it's something I think which was needed, because Oasis was kind of not gone, but you weren't getting those great tracks which we had, those songs before. They had a like their fourth album was like a compilation album of B-sides and things, and they hadn't really done anything from about like 96 when they released was it 97 then when they released Be Here Now. So a couple of years where there was no sort of new Oasis songs, and suddenly um, the Verve kind of showed up with this great album to continue that kind of vibe, you know, that indie kind of vibe of the 90's. And it was kind of like one of the last albums which kind of contained that kind of um, vibe, you know, carried it, you know, carried that torch. Bittersweet Sympathy, outstanding song. Track 2, Sonnet, outstanding song. Don't even think that was a hit, Sonnet. I don't think Sonnet was a hit, but it could have been. Unless I'm mistaken, it might have been a hit, but don't think it was. The Rolling People, The Drugs Don't Work, yet again having that kind of struggle and anxiety carried in the albums, similar to Travis. The Drugs Don't Work, you know, is an absolutely fantastic song. And then it kind of goes off on a little bit of a deep end of sort of like almost a psychedelic kind of tone to the album with Neon Wilderness, Space and Time, Weeping Willow. Then it brings you back with a great hit, Lucky Man, which is on par with the other 2 hits on the album. One Day, This Time, Velvet Morning, Come On. Great album, great another great album of the 90's. And this album kind of is mesmerizing, you know, in places with some of these songs. It is a joy because the deep cuts are very different from the hits, and it kind of brings you up this kind of this journey. You know, it feels like you're going out into some park and doing some acid or something like that, and you're on this kind of journey. That's what it feels like, and I think that's very much depicted in the songs and how they sound and why they have that kind of psychedelic tone. But yeah, a classic album of the 90's, and it's one I so happened to get my hands on at a very young age. So I think I brought this with my paper round money, as well as many of these actually. I think. What else did I pick up? My paper round money. That one as well I picked up with my paper round money. I remember buying this from on a stall, and on like a little fair which was going on. And there's a few stalls in town, and someone was selling a few CDs, and they had this, which like not long came out. I think they gave it a listen once and couldn't really adapt to it. Although I remember when I picked it up, he said that's a good album. So I think they gave it a one listen. Maybe they liked it, but needed some money or something. I don't know. But they are very quirky space, and I can see maybe it wouldn't quite stay with some people. You know, I get that. You know, but I was glad to pick it up, and I think I paid a tenner for it, and I was glad I did. It's a great album. It's one I wanted at the time, and just so happened to come across it. So what can you say? So yeah. Because like a lot of these albums, either I picked up with very little money, or my brother had, you know, which we listened to, and I brought them a little bit later. But great albums there. There really are some great albums, and it was a really great time. And it was sort of merging into sort of the 2000s as well. There was some really great music in the 2000s, especially in the sort of first half, I think. So I think it got better and better, really. But anyway, there you go. Maybe that's a video for another time. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. Till next time. Bye for now.